and welcome to Fun Friday at Camp Yarnsey, where I'm going to cover 5 ideas in 5 quick minutes or less. Here's your friendly reminder, our live knitting group happens on Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can get the information, including the links, at yarnsey.com. Today, we're going to be covering caring for your knitting needles and crochet hooks. Before I get started, I'm going to go ahead and set my timer, and let's begin. Now, here's a friendly reminder of things you should keep your needles and hooks away from. Direct sunlight. Think of these things as vampires. Extreme temperature changes, going from extreme heat and then extreme cold. So maybe not the best idea to take those wood bamboo needles out on the beach and then bring them back into the air conditioning. Also, humidity. Doesn't like it. Standing on the tips. Don't store your needles on their tips, please. The subway effect, I like to call it. Let's see how many needles I can jam into a container. That'll warp them over time. And also hard scrubbing. It's not good for them. Also, use your needles and hooks just for knitting and crocheting and nothing else. They're not meant to be tools for grabbing, poking, using anything like a screwdriver. Now here are some friendly reminders. Let's talk about needle and hook protection real quickly. Now, I don't know about you, but I like to jam my projects back into the project bags. So I need to use point protectors, especially on my needles that have smaller gauges. So when I toss them in that bag, it prevents my tips from being chipped and from dulling over time. So make sure you have some place to store your needles. Also, if you're using a case that does not have a hard plastic outer shell, make sure you don't place heavy items on top of your needle case, as this could warp the needles inside over time. Also, when you're out and about, it's always good to have those DPN tubes for storing those double-pointed knitting needles, as they always kind of seem to scatter, don't they? And also, as a friendly reminder with circular needles, when you're stuffing it back in your project bag, make sure to put your project onto the cord and that it's not hanging onto the needle itself or the needle cable join. So, just some friendly reminders there. Now, cleaning your needles and hooks. How often should you do it? Well, bare minimum, I'd say at least twice a year, or it might be easier to remember to do it at seasonal changes. Personally, I do mine as the season changes, or I do it as the hook or needle needs it, because there's some sizes I just use more than others. Now, bamboo and knitting needle. How do you clean it? All right, so for your bamboo needles, it's quite easy. So get some beeswax, or get a muslin cloth or a chamois and some beeswax, or instead of beeswax, you can grab some wax paper. So apply a very thin layer of the natural beeswax, or you can rub the wax paper on your needles. Then allow it to dry and then buff it with the soft cloth and leave for at least 24 hours before knitting. Now, as a side note, if you find that your wood or bamboo needles are grabbing, you can also get some very fine grit sandpaper, which feels kind of velvety soft, or an emery board and buff out those fine spots. And then repeat again with the beeswax or the wax paper. Now for your metal needles and hooks, you can find a lot of very wide variety of the brass polishes if you have the electroplated chromed tips, as well as mass. Now, mass is an interesting metal polish because some of them have a French lavender scent to them, so they don't smell as icky as some other metal polishes, but use the metal polish based on what your needles are made of. And then grab a soft cloth and apply some of that polish on there. Now, some will recommend you wipe off with water. Some will recommend a water dip. So read the instructions on the back of your metal polish to see how to clean it off. So make sure to dry it off and make sure it's clean before you start knitting with it or crocheting. Also note with crochet hooks, make sure to clean under the hook where the polish can build up under the hook itself. Now, for very small DPNs, it might be helpful to clean 2 at a time to prevent bending and or snagging the needles in the cloth. Now, for bent needles and curly circular needle cords. To calm down those circular cords, dip them in hot but not boiling water for a few seconds. Pull them out and give them a gentle tug to straighten and repeat if necessary. Once it's how you like it, plunge it in cold water to set. Now to straighten out those plastic knitting needles, and at times this may work for your bamboo and wooden. Now for metal needles, I recommend that you'd use some type of hand protection on this because metal will heat up quickly and get hot. Now I will use a tea kettle because it actually points the steam in a direction. Now I will hold the needle over that steam that's rising, and I will use my fingers or against the counter to rub it back and forth to try and get some of that bent shape out. Now, once I have it to where I want it, I will plunge the needle in cold water to set and wipe it dry. If it is a bamboo or wood needle, I will also follow up again with the beeswax or a wax polish to make sure it is protected. And I am done for today. If you enjoy lots of these types of tips and tricks videos, don't forget to check out our Facebook group, Instagram, Pinterest, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's always nice to know you're liked. So remember to share us with your friends. And thank you, Yarnsies, one and all, for watching and supporting us. I am Lindsay Lichtenstein, wishing you a fabulously creative day, because once a Yarnsy, you're always a Yarnsy.